To introduce the Butterfly Program. The Butterfly Program is a program that it grew out of St Vincent's Health Australia, and it was led through our aged care team, the St Vincent's Care Services team. It's true to say it is a project where we could say that we listened, we identified a need, that we listened to what that need was about. And it's true to say that having now implemented the program and having watched it grow, it's a program where we know we have touched lives for the better, and in return, each of the individuals involved have been touched as well. This program is a program that took courage to implement. It took courage from the St Vincent's Health Australia board to actually approve. It also took courage from the executive that led the implementation of this program we're going to hear about. It was a program where there was quite marked opposition, but at the same time there was quite marked support, beautiful support from the community that surrounded the project. So Helen Miller is going to talk about this project for us. Helen is our General Manager of St Vincent's Care Services for both New South Wales and for Victoria. Helen's been with St Vincent's Health Australia since 2009. So we started together in 2009. She's got broad experience across quite a lot of senior leadership roles in health. Helen has a nursing background. She also has a law background. In 2013, she was appointed the General Manager at St Vincent's Care Services, and her responsibilities are oversight of established and new aged care facilities in New South Wales and also in Victoria. So the Butterfly Program, in 2015, the Australian government announced it would make an extra 12,000 humanitarian places available for the resettlement of Syrian refugees. And in February 2015, St Vincent's coincidentally took ownership of a residential aged care facility in Eltham, which is a suburb about 25 kilometres from the centre of Melbourne. It also happens to be next door to the Mary Aikenhead Ministries Catholic Ladies College at Eltham. A number of the units had fallen into disrepair and were no longer fit for residential use, and despite the fact this was an area in which our board and our organisation was not used to working within this space, the SVHA board then took the courageous decision to refurbish these units and to offer them and to provide accommodation for the refugees who are fleeing persecution and danger in Syria. So there will be a short video. This is their story, and then Helen will talk afterwards.
The Refugee Housing Project at St Vincent's Care Services Eltham reflects our mission to serve the most vulnerable members of our community. In this case, refugees from Syria and Iraq who have fled conflict in their countries. We are committed to providing safe haven for these families and to support them in building a new life in Australia. Housing is a major issue for recently arrived Syrian and Iraqi refugees. They are particularly vulnerable to the high cost and competitive private rental markets in our major capital cities. Many end up living in insecure housing, and this can impede their ability to settle into a community. In November 2015, the Board of St Vincent's Health Australia approved a plan submitted by St Vincent's Care Services for an investment of $2.4 million to upgrade 60 disused units at our Eltham site to house refugee families. The units had been vacant for some years and were unsuitable for accommodation. In December 2016, we welcomed the first group of refugees as our tenants at Eltham. By providing this accommodation, we live our mission through reaching out to the refugees, making them self-sufficient by establishing positive community links and rental history, the opportunity for secure employment and to become members of the local community. This very complicated project would not have been achieved through the work of just one organisation alone. So we are very grateful to have had the opportunity to work collaboratively with St Vincent's Health Australia, Catholic Care, the local community and other Catholic ministries. Through this collaboration, we are all delivering on our mission to serve the most vulnerable in our community.
Look, it's been a long journey since the board made that momentous decision. We actually had so many hurdles to jump over and many blockages along the way, and there's so many of them. But I think as a team and with our partners, with Catholic Care, we just kept plugging away, and we knew that we had the commitment of the organisation behind us to go the course. So when the very first time when we looked at getting the project going, we knew we needed support funding-wise. I basically engaged with Catholic Care and they became our partners. We spent a lot of time drafting a business case together. We lobbied government departments. We used every lever we could possibly pull to get into the ear of the right person. And in the end, government said, no, we're not funding it. If you want to support housing, sort of medium-term, short to medium-term housing, you need to actually go it yourself. Initially there was a lot of support verbally, but when it came to it, they actually said, no, we don't like the particular housing stock you have. We again pushed through that and back with Catholic Care. They were able to access some donors, some very generous donors to help them bring the project alive, because we needed support. So St Vincent's don't have the experience in housing and support for refugees and asylum seekers, but Catholic Care do, and that's the reason we partner with one of our partners to do that. So they needed to fund a support worker and a tenancy worker. But that whole process, we spent many months, it seemed, and a lot of positive energy, but little blockages, and we just kept moving ourselves through those.
Catholic Care have been running settlement services for many years. However, never in a sort of a community environment. And being Elsa in a new area raised challenges that at the beginning we didn't thought they were going to be as big as they were. And now things have settled. The residents are happy and are friendly. The newly arrived families are happy. And I think we have started something here, and this project should be implemented somewhere else. Should be used as an example of how the community can make a difference and how the community have changed, because we have all changed.
I think initially, as in any community, when something changes, there's always a fear. And I think it's about recognising the fear, and the fear is usually of the unknown.
Members of Reclaim Australia, the True Blue Crew and other groups, some from Sydney, came together to denounce the imminent arrival of refugees here. A rival group took to Eltham's main street to welcome the refugees.
We really are looking forward to the refugees coming. We're a very diverse community already, and we don't have a problem at all.
What we set about to do was to get rid of the unknown, and having got to the facts and get to what the real situation was, people here were able to put that fear behind them and reach out. The people here have interacted well, and my goodness, you see people going past the blocks here behind on their way to do their shopping with their shopping trolleys, and there's waves all the way down the street, and there's, often they can't communicate because of the language, but the facial expressions and the gestures show that kindness and goodwill. The elderly people in the village, they've lived their lives, they don't tend to have baggage, and they know that giving is the reward. The happy people are the givers, the unhappy people are the takers, and they've lived long enough to know that that's the way it works. So the joy that they're getting out of giving is lifted them. In fact, it's lifted the whole village, having these people come here. The concerns have gone, and there is a joy and an interaction, which we enjoy very much.
They're all homeless and displaced, and it's horrible stuff going on. So at least we can help a hand.
Well, as a parish community, we feel very strongly about it. Generally, there's a lot of support for it and a lot of involvement. And I think that's part of the church's mission, social justice and reaching out particularly to the needy and the vulnerable and disadvantaged.
Everyone in the parish just wants to lend a hand and just to make, to welcome people into Australia or Melbourne or Eltham in particular. I've got lots of parishioners who come forward and said, can I need a shawl? can I, bake a cake, and can I, come over and visit, and, what can I do? There's so many people that come up to us and say, what can I do? And it's just, we have a beautiful country that, we want to extend to everyone and welcome people in, make them feel at home.
Well, the volunteers in Montmorency and Eltham have been incredibly generous in this project, and they've helped with donations of goods, but also time to set up units, time to come and join in meetings to find out what needs to be done. And then it's about going out and communicating with others and saying this is what needs to be done, and then also spending time with the new residents to help them to find out where the train is, how to use public transport, to source facilities and services needed in the local area. I think the most important thing that a volunteer does, or we have been doing, is to welcome the people who are coming, to help them know that they are welcome and that they can feel safe here, and just sort of like settle in and connect to the community as best as they can.
The motivation for sort of getting involved up here was the fact that we had a situation where you look at TV every night and there's this terrible tragedy happening in Syria.
And Syrians feel shunned by what they see as the indifference of the outside world.
When we heard that St Vincent's Care were going to be opening up this facility here for 60 families, and Terry Keane at Mass, our local parish priest, great guy, he wondered if anybody could offer help in some way to be good. And I suppose that they needed televisions, so we thought, well, that's one we can help. And the money that they save from buying everybody a television go to other aspects of the refugee help.
This one, we just bought a dog. Bought a dog plushie. Just found whatever shirt fit him, and well, plopped it on him. Honestly, I'm just here because I just wanted to help. That's all anybody can do, really.
I guess what was driving us was we felt that we had room in our hearts and in our town for the people who came here, and that's what we wanted to express. And when we heard negative stories about how people felt, that's not who we are. We wanted to create positive stories, and I think that's what we've done very effectively. We hooked up with the Australian Syrian charity, who now have a centre in Brunswick, and so a group of us from Eltham every Friday night go over and tutor Syrians over in the Syrian centre. So they've set up a children's marching band, because in Syria marching bands are a big thing, and so the parents bring the children there, and so instead of the parents just sitting around waiting for their children, Father Samir's idea was that we could use that time productively to run English conversation classes, and it's such a joy. We laugh a lot. We're teaching them about our culture. They're teaching us about their culture.
I understand one of the residents leaves her door open regularly in the mornings when she bakes bread, and it's a way that she welcomes in others to share that bread with her each day. She's been welcomed here, but she is very open and welcoming others that are coming past her door. It's a beautiful story.
One of Mary Aikenhead's expressions particularly rings true with me for this project, and that is, just because it hasn't been done before doesn't mean we shouldn't do it now. And I think that's very, very applicable to this project.
Thank you. In the tradition of Mary Aikenhead, we clearly continue the journey of providing services to the poor and marginalised, but we do so with our hearts and our minds. And I think that's clearly evident in what you've just seen. Mary Aikenhead's vision, commitment and inspiration lives on in us and the work that we do. We bring compassion and the love of Jesus to the many who are in need, with a word of hope and encouragement, a helping hand and a listening ear. And to quote John's quote and Mary Aikenhead, This may have never been done before, but that's no reason why we should not do it now. How true. As you can see, we identified and heard a need. We heard the call, we listened. We saw an opportunity, Eltham and its unused units. We reached out and we actually made it happen. We recognised and understood the boundaries of our expertise in this area and reached out to an organisation such as Catholic Care to work in partnership to provide the necessary care and care delivery. And as you can see, along the way, many other groups in our community, mainly from the broader community, came along. This is, I think, what we see as hope in action. As you heard, as with all the journeys that we have taken, there are always challenges. There were resistant hurdles and lots of reasons why we could not do or chose not to do this. Some of these include that we had to rezone the land. Application had to be made to the government in relation to changing the zoning of the land to enable the use for younger Syrian and Iraqi refugees. There was resistance from the local community and the much broader community across Australia, and even within our own resident population within St Vincent's Care Services Eltham. This required lots of discussions, meetings, talks with residents, addressing the issues that they raised. As you can appreciate, this does not involve just one person, it involves many. At this point, I'd particularly like to acknowledge Russell Chesler, who is our National Development Manager. He certainly took this project to heart and was at the forefront of most of those discussions. And as a consequence, he did receive death threats as well during this period. There was, as you can see, a small minority, thankfully, from within our Australian community who objected so strongly that we did and our staff were subject to hate mail, death threats, and also abusive phone calls were received through our switchboard at Eltham on a daily basis. Most of our staff expressed genuine concern and anxiety about wearing the uniform into the wider community, that they would be confronted. And some of them were. They did relay experiences of strangers coming up to them in the street and saying, "Why are you doing this? We do not want this in Eltham." Obviously, as a manager, this was something that was very difficult to deal with, and I have to say, quite disturbing to experience. When you get confronted by someone's hatred at such a level, it's quite confronting and very difficult to manage and accept. I clearly recall the day of the protest. I arrived with Russell in Eltham, and it was a sea of police. There were uniformed mounted police, there were even riot police. There was also many undercover police as well. At first there was a very uneasy feeling in the atmosphere, that uncertainty, that unknown of what could possibly take place. But most interesting and most significant, I believe, was the silent group of supporters. The members of our community, the politician, the councillors, the other staff, who were the Welcome to Eltham group, who stood silently in this sea of police outside St Vincent's Care Services Eltham. They held silent vigil amongst the butterfly symbols. To me, that was the most powerful, significant moment. There was, and I use this word, there was a sense of solidarity. It was extremely moving. It was like, this is definitely what we have to do. There was no doubt about it. That, for me, was the real turning point. And thankfully, the protesters far outweighed the number of those who were against it. So I'm pleased to say that in the end, the protesters had their say, thankfully. Everyone has a right to say, but it was nowhere near the power of the silent vigil and the butterflies. There was definitely the strength of that support that shifted, I believe, the tide of resistance and contributed to the success of the program, of normalising the environment. And now, as you saw, they're members of our community. not only within St Vincent's Care Services Eltham, but also in the wider Eltham community, which is a really positive thing to see. Most importantly, you will note that the refugees don't speak. They're not interviewed and they don't speak, and we're not allowed to take photos of them. And this is because they see this as being disrespectful to the members of their family left behind in Syria and Iraq. And I have to say, they genuinely fear that photos or names could actually get back into the wrong hands and put their loved ones at risk. And they're just not prepared to do that. But I can assure you that they are really, really grateful. And they are so happy to be within a community that accepts them and gives them full of love. I'm also pleased to say that next week I'm going to Eltham, and I've been invited to have Syrian coffee with one of the refugees, and I hope that I'm going to get some bread as well. So that will be really nice. It's really important for them that they have another opportunity in their lives outside of war, outside of conflict. One of the refugees showed me a photo on her iPhone of downtown Damascus, peak hour. Could have been downtown Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane. The only difference was that there was a rocket that was travelling, obviously at great speed, across the city skyline for a destination to hurt humans, no doubt. That was extremely confronting. In closing, before I get really upset, I am sure that Mary Aikenhead and all her sisters also invented the saying that when the tough gets going, the tough get going. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. I spoilt that line, didn't I? But I also say that they absolutely, truly, in the memory of Mary Aikenhead and all the sisters that have gone before, we should never shy away from what we need to do, and we must stay true to the mission. Thank you.